Well, welcome everyone to Tea and Talk Virtual Edition. My name is Leslie Thompson. I'm Director of Adult Programs at the Sid Richardson Museum. And before we get going, I want to start us with how I begin all of our public programs at the Sid, which is with a land acknowledgement. And for those who are unfamiliar, a land acknowledgement pays tribute to the original inhabitants of the land that we're on. So we, the Sid Richardson Museum, respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who've lived on this land since time immemorial. And the Sid would especially like to acknowledge and pay respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose historical homeland our museum is located. So today, in addition to members of the museum staff, we have a special guest with us today. So I'm going to go in order of my screen and introduce everyone. So when I say your name, just raise your hand so everyone knows who I'm talking about. So above me, I've got Shelby Orr, who's Director of School and Family Programs. Below me, I've got Renee Green, who's our Admin Assistant at the museum. Below her, we've got Betsy Thomas, who is Director of Education Resources. Below her is our special guest, Laura Evans, who is Associate Professor and Coordinator of the Art Museum Education Certificate in the Department of Art Education and Art History at the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas, which is not too far from Fort Worth. And then below her, we've got Scott Winterroad, who is our director at the Sid Richardson Museum. So thank you everyone for joining us today for our Tea and Talk. To quickly review for those who are not familiar with Tea and Talk, this is a program that we host at the museum under normal circumstances, the first Wednesday of every month throughout the school year. And Tea and Talk is an opportunity to slow down the art viewing process. Studies have shown that when visitors are at a museum, they spend about an average of 10 to 12 seconds with a work of art. That's just really not a lot of time to take in all of the details and nuances of painting. So Tea and Talk really kind of allows for a visual deep dive into one work of art through shared conversation and observations. So normally in person, our program allots for about half an hour, which sounds like a lot of time, but it really goes by really quickly when you find yourself so immersed in the painting. But of course, for the sake of our virtual experience today, we will keep it at 10 minutes. And I have on the screen here an image of the painting that we'll be looking at today. That is from our collection at the Sid. And I want to remind everyone that while it's nice to have digital reproductions to look at, it's obviously not as good as the real thing, because I'm sure there will be a lot of details and textures that we might miss in the painting by looking just at our screen. So I encourage you, when you have an opportunity, to go look at real art. Because there's so much richness to the surface as well. But with that being said, let's take a look at this painting, the artist and title of which I will refrain from sharing until the end of our conversation, just to avoid influencing our looking. But I'm going to set a timer. And as you're looking at this painting, go ahead and share something that you noticed.
I feel like there's a lot of movement in the use of the paint and the use of color. It really gives me a sense of these horses, you know, rushing up this hill. And that feeling of them just like galloping along in these tall grasses.
I love that. So through his use of color and paint, he's really provided this feeling of you're feeling the horses moving through the landscape. Yeah. What else do you notice?
I also feel the heat, and I think that is complementary to the movement. And I only know this from talking about this work with other people, but this horse right here, the horses in the forefront, this really shiny, it looks like lather, which I learned that about talking about horse people. So it looks like they've been running for a really long time, and I can just such a dry, arid looking landscape.
Yeah, so you're picking up a sensation of heat, both through the color of the landscape, kind of the dryness, but also through the details of the horse, the actual surface of the horse, and what is known as lather, the sweat of the horse. Yeah. What else do you notice?
Something that I don't think I've really ever, I knew that they had rifles in this painting, but to look at the position, they're holding them behind. So they're obviously in a hurry, or they're, going somewhere quickly, but at the same time, that leads me to believe maybe they're not right immediately in pursuit, because they don't have them the other way, like they're ready to fire at something. They're more sort of in a running relaxed position. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah.
But so I never really thought about that before. So that's very interesting to me to see.
So you're noticing the position, how they're holding the rifles is kind of giving you a little more information about maybe what's ahead, or what they're anticipating or what they're not anticipating at this point. Yeah.
Right.
And the way that they're holding them just looks like it would be so awkward to try to do on a moving horse. I'm trying to imagine what that would feel like. And, I feel like I can barely hold my phone up to my ear these days for more than 15 seconds without my, feeling like, oh my God, this is such hard work. So I can't imagine, trying to keep control of a horse with one hand, holding a rifle out with the other hand, and moving at a fast speed for who knows how long they've been, going at this pace. And it would get extremely difficult to hold that rifle.
Yeah. So very impressive. We're very impressed with the feat of holding a rifle in such a position while also managing horse galloping through this landscape.
Until Laura said that, I had never noticed that his other hand right here is on the heel of the gun, or I don't know what you call that. But so he's supporting it with this arm, and it looks like the reins, or he's kind of looped through. So he's holding the gun with both hands, but also the reins.
Wow.
It looks like. Yeah. I've never noticed that, because I'd always assumed, you control the horse with one hand and you hold the gun with the other.
And the person behind him also looks like would be his left hand. He's also has a reins in that hand, and he has something in the right hand, and I don't know if that's more like a cord or the other rein. I'm not can't quite tell, but I never noticed that before either.
Yeah, and I never realized, like, they have, like, a padding. There's no saddle really. I can't see any kind of stirrups, and the rein, it seems very thin. So they're really must be amazingly good horse riders.
Yeah, to have such minimal equipment.
Yeah.
What else do you notice? Laura, you're going to say something?
Oh, there is like such a look of fear on the face of that first horse to me. Does anyone else read fear there?
Absolutely. Yeah, that or just strain, fear and strain, like, but that eye always drives me and draws me in.
And it makes me wonder, does he see something? Is he more aware that there's something there, or is it just, from the thrill of the racing up the hill?
Yeah. So we're picking up on the facial expression of the horse itself and what it might be communicating to the viewer. Yeah. What else do you
I
notice?
feel like the horse looks very stressed, as do the riders. The riders flanking the first rider, they've got their heads down. It's like, oh my God. If you've ever been running up something and you're like, if I just keep my head down and don't look, maybe I can get to the top. I don't know. I wonder if that's maybe, they just look everyone looks stressed in this, except the man at the front looks very intent. At the fore, he's very intent on whatever's about to happen to me.
Yeah.
Another thing I never noticed before, and I love this, and I actually, before we started, I was sort of doing this because it's like, is my computer screen dirty? Because that's another, when you're seeing these in person, you can actually, know better what you're looking at. I'm not sure what you call them, but it's so interesting. I can't believe I've noticed this. At the top of the painting, the wispies, the smoke-like almost wispies that you will see on certain days, they're dark.
Oh, like in between the clouds?
Yes. And you will see those sometimes at certain times of day, or, I don't know. I think it's more of maybe a lower cloud. I'm not a weather person, but I just find that very interesting that I've never noticed that before in between the intermittent, the really white clouds at the top.
Yeah.
But that's just some more detail that's very, it's a lot of detail. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So Renee is noticing, you can kind of see it on this digital image that amongst the clouds, there's kind of these darker hued, wispies is a good term.
Yeah.
Whatever you call them.
So it's unclear if that is intended to be part of kind of the sky of what you do see in the sky, or because we're not with the painting in person, I wonder if being with the painting in person would reveal, like, is that part of the texture of the painting?
It is part of the texture.
Is it?
Because I've spent a lot of time looking at this painting, and then when we had to unframe it to get it glazed because it's traveling right now, so I've spent a lot of time with the picture. It's a very thinly painted sky, but there are some textural areas that give that modulation and color in the sky. And then the whites that you're seeing there are very textural on top. They're much more thick kind of applications that stand off the canvas much more. And then everything that you see below that, the landscape, the mountains in the distance, and that yellow vast plain down below is much more thinly painted. And then when you get back to the foreground, of course, you can see that grass area is very thickly painted, except for in the shadows, which is thinner. And then the horses and the riders are fairly thinly applied, but then the lather and other textural effects that are such highlights in the picture are, again, much heavy impasto.
Just another great reason to go to the museum and look at the paintings in person. Yeah.
Well, and I think I don't think I've mentioned in any of the other TN talks, but the size of this one to me is impressive. I think it's it's not too big, but it's really striking because of its size, and you're faced right up against these riders. They look larger than life.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the clothing?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't know what tribe this is, but it doesn't look like a traditional dress. And so it makes me think that there has been a strong, and of course, along with the rifles, a strong Western influence on this tribe.
Yeah, absolutely. So Laura's picking up on the clothing. It's very, Western style clothing. It's not traditional native clothing. So in addition to the clothing and the weapons, knowing maybe the time period, or also their interactions with settlers as well. One detail that I always really enjoy about this painting is the sash around the waist, and you can actually see it, at least on the front too. You can see it on the back rider. But that sash, what's really a fun connection with our collection is that sash is also the same sash that another artist in our collection, Charlie Russell, would wear, that he first discovered American Indians like these wearing, and he thought it was fantastic and that it might help him look like he has a slimmer waist, which is not the reason why these gentlemen wear it, but Russell decided to appropriate it for his own purposes. And so actually there's several paintings or any photographs you can see of him wearing that particular sash, which I think is really fun. But we've actually, we've reached our 10 minutes here, which, man, really just flew by, and I felt flash. And there were so many other things. I have more things to say about the sash. I have more things to say about the shadows. There's so much.
At least tell them who wore the sash, because we never even told them who these people were.
Yes. Okay, so first I should mention that this particular painting was painted by Frederic Remington. It's called Buffalo Runner's Big Horn Basin from 1909. And the other artist, Charlie Russell, in our collection is the one who borrowed the sash that these gentlemen are wearing. Now, these American Indians, what I have read, they are known as Métis, which is a mixed race of American Indians and French Canadian fur trappers. And the sash is what I've read. And the sash is common among Métis Indians, and that had, you know, like a lot of things, it had multiple uses while they were out there hunting buffalo or what have you. Yeah, but this is just a little teaser, a little intro into this painting, and maybe a great opportunity to see how looking at a work of art together virtually can take place while museums like the Sid Richardson Museum are temporarily closed. But we would love to keep the conversation going, and we would love to hear from you what your thoughts are about this painting. So please leave your comments below, any observations that you have, or if you know anything about holding rifles, because that would be a really interesting thing to know, particularly with this painting. But until next time, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for Tea and Talk today.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks.
y'all.